Tshwane is once again without a mayor. This follows the resignation of Murunwa Makwarela, who was only recently reinstated in the position. He had been disqualified when it was flagged that he was an unrehabilitated insolvent. Now, the multi-party coalition has laid charges against him for supplying a falsified and fraudulent document to the City of Tshwane. Let's discuss this further with political analyst Lukhanyo Vanqa. Lukhanyo, thank you so much for your time this morning. A very good morning to you. I mean, when it rains, it pours, certainly in the City of Tshwane. Once again, the city finds itself without a mayor. At the back of this is this issue around insolvency. You have the multi-party coalition and other members of the opposition wanting to lay criminal charges against the said former mayor. What exactly is happening? I mean, how do we even comprehend the level of discredibility that exists within the city and the impact that it has on the residents?
Good morning, Faith, and good morning to the viewers. Yes, it has been a week of high intrigue and drama. It's been a tragic comedy to some instance of Shakespearean proportions. The fact that something like this could really happen in our body politic, you know, is one, shocking, and two, calls into question the integrity of our politicians. And once that happens, the people will start to lose faith in their politicians, in politics, and in our democratic institutions, because while they sit in Mamelodi, in Hammanskraal, without water for weeks on end, this is what's happening in council, and this is what their politicians and their leaders are doing. So they wouldn't have confidence that any of their problems are going to be addressed when there's a clear lack of values in their leaders, that their leaders could commit fraud, that their leaders could be involved in such tragic comedies and errors like this, where you see a mayor actually faking a court document. It's ridiculous to some instances. Like the deputy president of Cope said, it's nonsensical, it's farcical.
Yeah, you know, and the sad part about this is that it no longer becomes about service delivery, right? It's now about what power can I hold on to the fullest extent to exercise under the auspice of me being the executive mayor. You almost want to know what was the agenda, the end result of you being mayor, because clearly if service delivery was at the cornerstone of this, you would have started this position with a level of integrity.
Absolutely, and not just sort of isolated to the mayor Makwarela himself, but also to the other parties that are involved in this drama. For an example, when this matter was raised with the municipal manager, Mr. Metla, on the 6th of March, on Monday, he didn't take this through a due process where he's going to refer it to the legal services to investigate whether or not this man is an unrehabilitated insolvent. He simply, within 24 hours, wrote to the IEC and sort of set off this this process of high intrigue and drama. And only on Thursday, when he's finished with this certificate again, doesn't take it through any due process. He simply writes to the IEC and reinstates the man without taking due care in how he carries out his responsibilities as a municipal manager. So he's also at fault on this aspect in terms of the way that he manages the administrative arm of the city. The coalition partners that are involved here, from the DA side, the DA-FF Plus coalition, there's accusations that they knew about this issue all along, but they kept it as a trump card in their back pocket, wherein they could play politics with it. So it would call into question their integrity as well, to say you are willing to work with such characters who are insolvent, who do not qualify, as long as it benefits or it's politically expedient for you. That calls that into question. Now, the question that you then raised is, what was the purpose of putting a man of this character into this particular position? And that's a question that needs to be answered by the EFF and ANC COPE triumvirate, to say, how could you have such characters that come and represent your triumphant coalition? It calls into question your integrity as well. And I think there needs to be a return to values-based leadership in our political in our body politic, that politicians need to inspire confidence in public, that they are concerned about the public's issues, that they are concerned about service delivery, that they are prioritizing the resolution of the challenges that the city of Tshwane faces. And at the moment, unfortunately, there isn't that values-based leadership that we see from any of the political parties that are involved in this drama.
And if the devil's advocate had to ask you, but Lukhanyo, what is so bad about being insolvent? I mean, you know, it's the past. You know, what is so bad about it? Why this particular focus? What would you say?
It's the height of irresponsibility, Faith. It means that you have not managed your own financial affairs in a way that is prudent, and therefore you don't have capacity to manage any financial affairs. Now, when you get elected into this public position, this is the position of trust, wherein you manage the financial affairs of the public on their behalf. And if you cannot be able to manage, you have been proven to be unable to manage financial affairs prudently, then you do not qualify. So it's in the same bracket as having a criminal record. And also, Faith, it's sort of contradictory as well in our constitution that if you are insolvent or you are declared insolvent, you are then disqualified up until and if you are ever rehabilitated. However, if you have a criminal record for child rape, for murder, any of those things, it's only a matter of 5 years after the expiry of your sentence, then you qualify to be a public representative. So I think there needs to be a strengthening of of our legislation in that aspect to make sure that we don't have people who are or were convicted criminals also coming into a position of trust in our political leadership.
So now, obviously, it's about the charges potentially being laid. I mean, I think it happened at Brooklyn Police Station, right? But at the end of the day, Lukhanyo, and I go back to my first point, the residents of the city of Tshwane are the ones that are missing out here because all they want is to ensure that basic services are delivered to them. And dare I say, it has not been happening for a long time. And will not this lead to community members reaching a point of just that tipping point? You cannot keep flipping and changing because of political power. Meanwhile, the basics of political power, which is to provide services to the people, is not being met. Surely the people are going to wake up and say, actually, enough is enough.
Yes, that's a very important point that you're making, Faith, and I don't know if our politicians are not aware of this. Once people lose confidence in their politicians, they lose confidence in politics. Once they lose confidence in politics, then they disengage from the political process. They no longer vote. They no longer participate in democratic institutions. They don't trust democratic institutions, the democratic process, and then they disengage. Once they disengage, they go into extrajudicial means of advocating for their needs. So if someone doesn't have water today and they know that government cannot give them the water that they need, then they will make other means to make sure that they get the water. So they can either go steal, rob, or find a way to get that water. But it's not going to be in a democratic process with respect for the institutions of government. And that's where you see a public violence. That's where you see demonstrations that turn violent. That's when you see people begin to speak about becoming their own sort of government. And I think you've seen it in some instances where people are starting to fix their own potholes because they've lost faith in democratic institutions and the ability of government to fix those potholes. So once that self-help starts to creep into the political process, Faith, then we have a serious problem because that sort of becomes a catalyst and quickens the time in which we can have a total collapse of government and a collapse of our democracy.
Yeah, I definitely see this as really a big concern in light of what has been transpiring in the city of Tshwane. More than anything else, the people that are at stake with this one. Lukhanyo Vanqa, much appreciated for your time. Our political analyst giving us the latest when it comes to what's been happening. And as he calls it, it really is a tragic comedy in the city of Tshwane. But